Hello, third graders. We're back still in Module 10, Tell a Tale, with your essential question, why is it important to pass stories down to the next generation? So today we're going to be reading a new story. We have worked the past 2 days on reading Why the Sky is So Far Away and talking about theme and also talking about visualizing. Today we're going to be reading a new story, but before we read our story, we need to go over some new vocabulary words that you're going to be seeing. The first one is upcoming. It says, if an event is upcoming, it will take place soon. The upcoming recital will take place on the 15th of the month. So it's coming up soon. Upcoming. Number 2, proclamation. A proclamation is a statement or message about an important matter that everyone needs to know. I'm making a proclamation. The mayor announced a proclamation. That was his statement or his message that is important and everyone needs to know. Here we have pungent. Ooh, look, the boys are smelling the nasty trash can. If something is pungent, it has a strong smell that may be unpleasant. There is a pungent smell coming from the trash can. Okay. And the last one for this story, snickered. And I'm sure that you've all done this before. We all have. Snickered. If someone snickered, they laughed in a rude or disrespectful way. Alan snickered when his brother played with his food. A rude or disrespectful way. He snickered at him. Okay, so now let's go and have a look at our mini lesson for today. Okay, we are back at visualizing, just like we talked about on Monday. Remember, when you visualize, you use your senses to create pictures in your mind as you read. Ask yourself those questions. What would I smell if I was there? What would I hear? What would I taste? And what would I feel? So today we're going to be reading a fairy tale called Cinder and the Stinky Footwear. So, one way to keep track of the story events is to imagine the actions taking place in our minds. Remember, good readers create pictures in their minds as they read in order to better understand the text, and that's called visualization. Okay, so now you need to turn in your My Book to page 390 and 391. Cinder and the Stinky Footwear. Remember, this story is a fairy tale. Fairy tales are traditional tales that tell stories about magical characters and events. Authors of fairy tales tell the story through the plot. The characters in fairy tales may include royalty. Authors of fairy tales may begin the story with once upon a time or long, long ago. Authors of fairy tales use sensory details and figurative language to develop the setting and the characters. Here's those 4 vocabulary words again. And let's build background. So, who is Cinderella? If you think you know Cinderella, you might be surprised to know the 9th century Chinese story of Ye Xin may be the earliest version of the story. Almost every culture around the world has its own version of Cinderella. A Cinderella may be female or male. Most Cinderella stories involve a lost item that is almost always found. And most Cinderella characters are strong and resourceful enough to take care of themselves, but a little magic never hurts. Okay. Let's turn the page. Cinder and the Stinky Footwear. Once upon a time, in the land of Stinky Hollow, there lived 3 brothers. The oldest brother, Stinky Steve, was a mighty skunk wrestler, and wrestling skunks made Steve reek. The middle brother was adorphorous Owen. Owen owned the biggest onion farm in the land, and he grew onions the size of ostriches. Growing giant onions made Owen pretty stinky too. The third brother was Al. Al didn't stink. In fact, he loved nothing more than keeping things clean and sweetly scented. He polished the cottage floors with lemony fresh oils, and he used lavender-scented soap to wash his clothes. His favorite pastime was cleaning the fireplace. He gathered the cinders and replaced them with flower petals and scented candles. Thanks to Al, the cottage, when his brothers weren't around, smelled like a flower shop. However, Al's stinky brothers didn't appreciate a clean fireplace and fresh aromas, so they made fun of him and called him Cinder Al. Okay, so here we can stop and we can visualize and we can use our senses to imagine what the brothers' cottage looks like. I can see the shiny polished wooden floors, smell the lemon oil. The fireplace is filled with colorful flower petals and the candles are arranged around the petals. Everything smells fresh, just like a summertime garden, because Al has cleaned it. Now let's look at page 393. Stinky Hollow was ruled by Princess P.U. Princess P.U. was an even mightier skunk wrestler than Stinky Steve, and she could pin 5 skunks at one time. She was a more fantastic farmer than Orpheus Owen. She grew Tinton garlic in the palace garden. Because of these mighty stinky abilities, Princess P.U. was the stinkiest person in Stinky Hollow, and she had no one to dance with at the upcoming palace ball, so she issued royal proclamation. Heary, heary, blah, blah, etc., etc. The stinky bachelor who can wear the stinky footwear will get to dance with Princess P.U. at the palace ball. If it all works out, the 2 of you might get married, but no promises. The stinky footwear was nothing more than a pair of elegant dancing shoes. However, these shoes came with one pungent problem. They reeked. They stank. They smelled like the biggest skunk sitting in a garbage dump on the hottest day of the year and eating 4 rotten eggs. Wearing these shoes and surviving their terrible stench wouldn't be easy, even for the stinkiest bachelors in Stinky Hollow. However, the rotten reek of the stinky footwear didn't stop Stinky Steve. He followed his nose straight to the palace. When he placed the footwear onto his feet, his eyes watered, his stomach churned, and his nose stung. Steve couldn't stand the stench, and he raced out of the palace screaming, "I'd rather sniff 70 skunks." Adorphorous Owen went next, and he did far worse than his smelly brother. After one whiff of the stinky footwear, Owen fainted. He passed out right in front of Princess P.U. Okay, so here's another place where we can visualize what these shoes must have been like. Oh, they must have been really, really bad. The text says that they reeked and stank, so I can just imagine the worst smell possible, like old nasty garbage, maybe combined with a skunk smell, and that's how Al's brothers must have felt when they smelled this footwear. Okay, let's look at page 395. No one will ever wear the stinky footwear, Steve and Owen argued back at home. But I haven't tried yet, said Cinder Owl. Cinder Owl's brothers snickered. You'll never be able to stand that stench, Cinder Owl. That night, Cinder Owl had a visit from his fragrant fairy godmother, who always smelled as fresh as daisies on a beautiful spring day. Okay. Let's turn the page. Listen, Owl, you will wear the stinky footwear and dance with Princess P.U. Here's what to do. The next day, Cinder Owl headed straight to the palace. With him, he carried a clothespin and a bag of cleaning supplies. He clipped the clothespin on his nose. Then he gave the Stinky Footwear the cleaning of a lifetime, and in no time the slippers smelled like a bed of beautiful roses. Best of all, they fit his feet perfectly. So off to the palace ball went Cinder Owl, sporting the Stinky Footwear and a clothespin. While Princess Piu was really nice, she still liked to wrestle skunks and grow garlic, which is, of course, disturbingly stinky. The princess and the owl hit it off, like onions and liver. Ew, stinky. And the rest? Well, let's just say everything worked out happily ever after. Okay, so that was a super cute story, and now I will leave you to answer your questions. On the next page, 397, you have your collaborative discussion questions. Go back within your text to find your answers, and happy reading. Goodbye.